I told my husband to stop acting so pathetic in front of everyone. I said Liam was just my childhood male friend, and our friendship with benefits did not mean Nolan could control me. Of course, I said it while Liam had his arm around my chair and my husband stood there holding the house keys I had given him. By Monday, those keys were the first thing he took back. My name is Seren Whitlow. I was 33 and I worked as a school counsellor, which meant people trusted me to explain feelings they were too afraid to name. The thing is, I thought that made me honest at home too. Of course, I only called it honesty when the truth helped me. That Thursday afternoon, my office smelled like dry markers and the lavender spray the school secretary kept using after parent meetings. A boy had cried in the chair across from me because his mother read his messages every night. I had told her that boundaries were not rejection. They were how love stayed safe. 2 hours later, I walked outside and broke that sentence in my own marriage. Nolan was waiting in the school parking lot with soup in a paper bag. He had parked under the sycamore tree because I once said I hated walking across the whole lot after crisis meetings. The soup was still warm. There was a plastic spoon tucked under the lid. He asked if the meeting was rough. I said it was fine. He handed me the soup anyway. 9 years together, 6 married, and Nolan still loved through small rescue plans. Soup, flat shoes, early bills, car insurance, spare charges. The blue enamel house key on my school lanyard had been his gift when we bought the house. He said the colour looked like the old front door from my childhood street. Back then, I cried. Now the key clicked against my badge and sounded like proof that I belonged somewhere I had started to resent. My phone buzzed before I opened the car door. Liam had sent an old photo from when we were 14, both of us muddy after a neighbourhood football game. He wrote that I looked more alive before I became someone's responsible wife. I smiled before I could hide it. Nolan saw. He asked softly if something had changed between us lately. That was how he asked for pain. Careful, no sharp edge, no heat. I told him nothing had changed. 2 words. One old photo. No crime. He asked why Liam had been texting after midnight again. I said Liam was childhood, not danger. I said Nolan would understand if he had known me before I became the safe version. He did not answer at once. His hand stayed on the steering wheel, thumb moving once over the leather. Then he asked if Liam still had the sidegate code from the summer barbecue. I laughed because the question sounded so small. I told him it was just a gate code. Nolan started the car. The soup bag sat between us, warm and untouched. That night, I saved Liam's old photo to my favourites and told myself marriage did not get to erase childhood. The old neighbourhood bakery still smelled like cinnamon and burnt sugar. I had not been there in almost a year, but Liam chose the table near the window without asking. The same table where I had cried at 13 after my father left and my mother stopped wearing lipstick. The thing is, Liam remembered the girl before all that. He remembered me climbing fences, cutting class for half a day, laughing too loud at block parties, running barefoot down the alley behind his mother's house. He remembered the version of me who did not check calendars or talk about mortgage rates. Nolan never knew her. Nolan met the adult version, the cleaned-up version, the version who had learned how to make pain sound useful. Liam slid a cinnamon roll toward me and said I still ate the middle first. I told him I had not done that in years. He said marriage did not erase muscle memory. That line should not have mattered. Of course it did. He was 34 now, a bar manager with tired eyes and a smile that still made old stories feel current. His shirt sleeves were rolled up. There was a small scar near his wrist from the time we broke a garage window with a cricket ball and blamed the neighbour's dog. He had history on him. Not romance exactly. Worse. Proof. Nolan had love. Liam had evidence that I existed before love asked me to behave. He asked if Nolan knew I was meeting him. I said Nolan knew we were friends. Liam smiled and said husband answers always sounded like school forms. I laughed too hard. The laugh made the woman at the next table look over. I liked that. I liked being seen laughing with someone who did not ask if I had eaten, slept, or packed an umbrella. Liam said Nolan looked like the kind of man who alphabetized medicine. I told him not to be mean. Then I laughed again. He leaned back and said Nolan did not know me when I was interesting. That should have insulted me. Instead, it made the bakery window look brighter. After the bakery, Liam walked me to my car. Rain had left little black spots on the pavement. He reached for the blue enamel key on my lanyard and tapped it with one finger. He said I still carried keys like a girl who might run away. His finger touched the key, not me. Still, I did not step back. One key, one old street. No clean reason to stay there that long. When I got home, Nolan was at the dining table with our household app open on his laptop. The living room smelled like the lemon cleaner he used on Sundays, even when it was not Sunday. Jessa sat on our couch with one leg tucked under her, drinking tea from my yellow mug like she lived there. Jessa was my cousin and my closest friend. She had a marriage that looked quiet from the outside and hollow if you sat with her long enough. She loved stories about Liam because they gave her something reckless to hold without burning her own hands. She asked how the bakery was. Nolan looked up before I answered. I said it was quick. That was the first active lie. Not because the bakery mattered. Because I chose the smaller version while standing in the house, where Nolan kept making space for the bigger truth. Jessa smiled into the mug. She asked if Liam still looked like trouble. I told her not to start. Nolan closed the laptop halfway. He asked, specific and factual, why Liam had come by 2 nights ago while he was working late and used the side gate code instead of ringing the bell. The room changed. Not loudly. Just enough that Jessa stopped moving her spoon. I said Liam had dropped off an old photo album. Nolan asked why Liam had to come when he was not home. What he meant was that another man had access to our house without his consent. What I heard was that my husband wanted to inspect my past before letting it through the gate. The thing is, my mother had lived under inspection after my father left. She asked permission from empty rooms. She folded towels like discipline could keep a person from being abandoned twice. I had promised myself I would never become her. So when Nolan asked about Liam, I heard a lock turning. I told Nolan he was making an old friend sound like an intruder. He said he was asking why someone outside our marriage could enter our side gate when I was alone. Jessa put her mug down and said childhood bonds were different. Nolan did not look at her. He kept his eyes on me. I said Liam had known me before Nolan ever heard my name. I said marriage did not give Nolan ownership over every door in my life. Nolan said he was not asking to own history. He was asking why history needed a gate code. That sentence had nowhere easy to go. So I turned it into something else. I told him his problem was that he needed everything labeled safe before he could let me breathe. He sat back, quiet. The laptop screen went dark between us. Jessa waited until he left the room. Then she said he was acting pathetic. I did not correct her. Later that night, I opened the household app and saw the old side gate code had been deleted. Nolan had changed it without a speech. No fight, no warning, just access removed. I called it petty. Then I texted Liam the new code. He sent back a little message saying I was trouble. I placed my phone face down on the nightstand before Nolan came in. The thing is, I still told myself I had not betrayed him. I had only refused to be supervised. The next morning, Priya from school asked if everything was okay after I snapped at a student's mother for using the word control too many times. I said I was tired. Priya looked at me the way counselors look at people who know the right words but not the right reason. By Friday evening, Nolan had started knocking before entering rooms I was in. Not because he had to, because something in our house had become formal. That should have scared me. Instead, I sent Liam a message asking what he was doing Saturday. Liam's backyard birthday party was for his younger brother, but by sunset, it felt like the whole old street had crowded into one wet square of concrete. Folding chairs circled a low fire pit. The grill smoked near the fence, string lights hung from the gutters, and rain from earlier in the day still darkened the ground under the tables. The air smelled like grilled corn and wet wood. Nolan came with me because I asked him to. Not warmly, not kindly. I said Liam's family expected both of us, and Nolan said he understood. He wore the green jacket I liked and carried the dessert tray from our car without being asked. Of course, that annoyed me. He was useful immediately. Useful when he was nervous. Useful when another man was already standing by the back door, smiling at me like he had saved my place. Liam hugged me first. Too long, maybe. His hand stayed at my waist for a breath after the hug should have ended. It was the kind of touch that could still be called friendly if everyone wanted the evening to stay easy. Nolan saw it. He did not interrupt. He only shifted the dessert tray from one hand to the other and asked Liam's aunt where it should go. That was Nolan. Hurt came in, and he gave it a job. I hated that because it made me look louder before I had even spoken. Liam called me by the old nickname from our street, Serrybird. Nobody had called me that in years. Jessa laughed when she heard it. Nolan asked what it meant. I said he had to be there. The phrase landed softly the first time. Then I used it again. When Liam mentioned the time we ran from Mr. Halden's dog, Nolan asked which house that was. I said he had to be there. When Liam told a story about us sleeping under the trampoline during a summer storm, Nolan looked at me. I said he had to be there. By the third time, the words stopped being an explanation. They became a fence. Jessa sat beside me near the fire pit, her knees crossed, her glass in hand. She told Nolan not to look so serious. She said Liam and I were basically family before Nolan even knew my name. Nolan smiled politely. His jaw moved once, then the side gate beeped. Liam had gone out front to help someone park. Now he came back through the side gate without anyone opening it. The keypad made its bright little sound. He stepped in with a bag of ice over his shoulder, easy as a person walking into a place that had already accepted him. Nolan looked from the gate to me. I looked at my drink. He waited until we were near the folding table with plastic cups. He asked if Liam still had access to our gate code. Quiet debrief. No raised voice. That was the point. I told him this was not the time. He said this was exactly the time because Liam had just used access to our home like it belonged to him too. What he meant was clear. What I heard was ugly. I heard my mother's tight mouth. I heard my father calling her no fun. I heard every rule a person uses before they become a prison. The thing is, I was not going to be made small at Liam's party. Not in front of the people who remembered me before I became careful. So I raised my voice. I told Nolan to stop acting so pathetic. The backyard thinned. One man near the grill laughed because he thought I was joking. Jessa laughed too, quick and sharp, the way people laugh when they want the scene to stay on their side. Then Evelyn walked through the gate and heard the end of it. Evelyn was Nolan's older sister. She had a way of looking at people like she was already saving the sentence for later. Nolan asked me not to do this in front of everyone. That made it worse. Privacy sounded like control when I was already performing freedom. I told him Liam was my childhood male friend. I said what Liam and I had was friendship with benefits, and that did not mean Nolan got to stand there acting like I had invited a criminal into our life. I said it would not destroy our marriage unless Nolan kept making his insecurity the main character. No one laughed that time. Someone near the fire pit lowered a plate onto their knees. Priya, who had come from school with her husband, looked down at her cup. Evelyn stared at me, not Liam. Jessa's smile stayed on her face but stopped moving. Liam took a drink. He did not defend me. He did not say it was harmless. He did not say Nolan was wrong. He only looked toward the fence like the party had suddenly become someone else's problem. I missed that. Or I chose to miss it. Nolan held our house keys in his hand. I remembered then that I had given them to him because my small bag had no room. His thumb moved over the blue enamel key. The key caught the string lights, bright and stupid and familiar. He placed the keys on the folding table beside the paper plates. The sound was small, metal on plastic, nothing dramatic. For one breath something opened in me. The key sat there between us. Nolan's hand pulled back from it. Liam stood behind my chair with his glass but did not step closer. Evelyn watched. Jessa had stopped laughing. The backyard had become a room with no walls, and every person in it knew something I was still refusing to name. Nolan was not trying to own me. He was watching me give away the private parts of our marriage and call it freedom. The thought came plain. Too plain. So I closed it. I touched Liam's arm and told the group that Nolan always made normal things dramatic. Liam smiled, but only with half his mouth. Nolan picked up only his car key from the table. He left the blue house key there. I told myself he was making a scene, but he did not slam anything. He did not raise his voice. He only walked through the side gate and left the sound of the party behind him. By the fire pit, the paper plates kept lifting in the damp wind. Sunday morning, the house smelled like old coffee and rain jackets drying by the door. Nolan was asleep on the sofa when I came downstairs. He was still in yesterday's shirt, his shoes lined neatly beneath the coffee table. The thing is, I told myself he wanted me to see him there. Of course, that was easier than asking why he had not come to bed. The blue enamel house key was missing from the bowl near the door. My lanyard hung on the hook without it, lighter than it should have been. The side table held his car keys, his wallet, and one folded receipt from the grocery store. Everything looked ordinary except the one missing object. I went into the kitchen and found Nolan making coffee. Only one mug sat beside the machine. He asked if I wanted coffee after he had already made his. That was new. Small things become instructions when people stop explaining them. I said I could make my own. He said okay. No bite. No punishment I could point at. Just okay. Evelyn arrived before noon. She did not knock twice or smile through the window like she usually did. She stood on the porch in a dark coat, holding her phone and looking past me into the hallway. She said Nolan had called her. I said he was turning a marriage argument into a family event. She said he had asked if he could stay with her if the house became impossible. The word impossible sat between us. I told her Nolan was being dramatic. Evelyn stepped inside and looked at the empty key bowl. She had seen enough at the party to speak without asking permission. She said I had called her brother pathetic in front of a backyard full of people, then defended a friendship with benefits as if he was strange for reacting. I said she did not understand because Liam had been in my life since childhood. Evelyn said history was not a permission slip. I hated that sentence because it was clean. No insult, no exaggeration, nothing loose enough to twist. When Nolan came downstairs, he looked at Evelyn and then at me. He thanked her for coming. His voice was tired but steady. Evelyn touched his arm once and left without hugging me. That was the first clear departure I could not dress up. In the living room, Nolan sat on the edge of the armchair. I stayed standing because sitting down would make it feel like a session, and I spent enough of my life in sessions. He said it was not just Liam, not just the arrangement, not just one ugly sentence at a party. It was the way I used Liam's history to make Nolan feel temporary in his own marriage, naming the pattern, the accumulation, not one incident. I told him he was making it poetic because facts looked worse for him. He asked what facts. I said Liam knew me before I became the woman Nolan wanted to manage. Nolan rubbed both hands over his face once, then let them drop. He looked younger when he did that. Not weak, just worn. He said he did not want to manage me. He said he wanted to know why his wife needed another man to hold a place in the marriage he was not allowed to question. The sentence was sad. Simply sad. I should have heard that. Instead, I heard control dressed in softer clothes. So I changed tactic. I sat across from him and made my voice gentle, the voice I used with parents when they were close to yelling in my office. I told him I understood that he felt embarrassed. I said I would not bring it up around people again. I said I could be more sensitive to how it looked. Fake compromise. Controlled softness. A careful offering of everything except the thing he asked for. Nolan looked at me for a long moment. He said embarrassment was not the wound. The wound was that I still thought the problem was his reaction. That made me angry because he had seen the shape of the tactic before I finished using it. I tried one more way. I told him I knew his childhood made him afraid of being left. His father had moved out when he was 9, and Nolan had spent years making himself useful enough not to be abandoned. I said I was sorry he felt threatened. He stood up. Not fast. Not loud. He said I was using counseling language to avoid saying I hurt him. The room went too quiet. I looked at the bookshelf behind him, at the insurance manuals he kept from old exams, at the framed photo from our first housewarming, at the little ceramic bird Liam had given me 2 birthdays ago. Nolan's eyes moved to the bird too. He saw me see it. He said he did not know how to stand beside a wife who told people another man could have parts of her that her husband was not allowed to question. For a second, there was that opening again. Not guilt. Something sharper because it did not come with drama. Nolan was not asking me to erase myself. He was asking why I needed him to be powerless before I could feel free. Then he said Liam's name. The door closed. I told Nolan he had never had to fight to be interesting because he simply stopped trying and expected marriage to protect him from comparison. He looked at me like I had chosen the worst available sentence and knew it. Then he walked to the hallway. The spare key hook hung near the thermostat. He removed the whole hook from the wall and placed it in the drawer under the console. No speech, no announcement. A silent decision marker. My phone buzzed a minute later with a household app notification. The side gate code had been changed. I told myself he had started acting like a landlord instead of a husband. Liam texted that afternoon asking if the insurance husband had cooled down yet. I smiled at the phrase, then deleted the preview before Nolan could see it. Jessa replied slower than usual when I messaged her about Evelyn. Priya did not answer at all. That night, Nolan closed the bedroom door from the outside and slept in the guest room with the house key on the nightstand. Monday evening, the dining table had become a place for papers. Not legal papers. Not yet. Just a notebook, a printed calendar, household account lists, and the kind of neat columns Nolan made when his voice had no safe place left to go. The thing is, logistics were his armor. Of course, I called it coldness because coldness gave me someone to blame. He sat at the table with his hands folded. I stayed near the kitchen counter. There was a glass of water beside me that I had filled twice and not touched. The house sounded too clean. No television, no dishwasher, no music from my phone. 1 notebook, 2 mugs. No room left for pretending. Nolan said he was not asking for a performance, a speech, or a punishment. He said he was asking for one clear thing. End the friendship with benefits with Liam and remove Liam's access to our home and marriage. Final and clean. One real offer. Not repeated. I heard a cage closing. I told him he was asking me to erase the person who knew me before I became someone's wife. Nolan said he was not asking me to erase childhood. He was asking me to stop using childhood as cover for betrayal. That sentence made my face hot. I said he made marriage feel like a safety plan, then acted confused when I missed being wanted. The words came out clean because they were true. Nolan did not deny them. That almost ruined me. He looked at the printed calendar, then back at me. He said he had made too many things practical. He said he thought making life safe would make me feel loved. He said maybe he had been wrong about what safety could give. For 1 second, the room offered me a different path. I could have sat down. I could have said Liam's name without making it a weapon. I could have admitted that being wanted by Liam made me feel young, not right. I could have let Nolan be flawed without turning his flaw into permission. Instead, I chose the wound. I told him Liam made me feel like a woman, not a household responsibility. I said Nolan made me feel like a person he insured against loss. His face did not change at first. Then his eyes moved to my phone on the counter. I picked it up. That was voluntary. Not impulse. Not whine. Not a misunderstanding. I chose it with dry hands and a clear screen. I texted Liam at the table. I wrote that Nolan was demanding I end what we had, and I would not let him decide who got to love the real me. Then I placed the phone face up so Nolan could see it. Nolan watched the screen. Nothing happened. Liam did not answer. My own message sat there, ugly and brave-looking and unanswered. I kept my face still. The thing is, performing calm is easy until the other person refuses to follow your script. Nolan stood slowly and picked up his notebook. I told him Liam was probably working. Nolan said nothing. I texted Jessa next. I told her Nolan was demanding I cut Liam off and acting like a wounded saint. I waited for her sharp reply, the one that would make me feel funny and wronged again. Jessa read it. No answer. One grey line. Then silence. Liam finally replied 7 minutes later. He wrote that maybe I should not drag him into the marriage part. The marriage part. Not us. Not what we had. Not the real me. The marriage part. I turned the phone over too quickly. Nolan saw. He said he understood now. I asked what that meant. He said he would handle things properly. The word properly moved through the room like a locked door. I asked if that was a threat. He said no. It was a boundary with a date. No legal language. No named person. No dramatic promise. That made it worse. He walked to the console table and took the blue enamel house key from where he had placed it earlier. I had not even seen it there. He put it in his pocket. I told him he was acting like the house belonged only to him. He said he was acting like it no longer belonged to Liam. That should have sounded possessive. It did not. It sounded clear. I tried to laugh. Nothing came out right. The next hour had no fight in it. Nolan put the notebook in his work bag. He checked the back door. He unplugged the lamp in the hallway because the cord had been loose for weeks. That small act nearly made me speak because even then he was fixing things as he left them. I told myself he wanted me to beg. He did not look back long enough for that story to work. Later I called Liam. It rang twice and went to voicemail. No callback. I called Jessa. She did not answer. I opened Priya's chat and saw that my last message from Sunday was still unread. The people who had made my choices feel bold were no longer standing close enough to get burned. Nolan slept in the guest room again. Before he closed the door, he said he would stay with Evelyn after work the next day if we could not speak without making the house worse. I said he was already leaving, so he should stop pretending it was mercy. He said he had been leaving since Saturday. I had only started noticing because he had stopped asking me to come with him. No raised voice, no final performance. Their silence was more frightening than any speech because silence did not give me a villain. Before bed, I stood in the hallway and looked at the place where the spare key hook had been. 2 small screw holes. 1 missing key. No one left to tell me I was right. The mediation office had white walls, grey chairs, and a water cooler that clicked every few minutes. I arrived 11 days later expecting a conversation. Not a warm one, maybe. Not easy. But still a conversation where Nolan would need my version before he could finish his. He was already there with Evelyn. That was the first answer. He looked tired, but clear. Evelyn sat beside him with both hands around a paper cup of water. She did not look away when I entered. She also did not stand. The mediator gave me a packet and explained that it was a petition for legal separation with temporary exclusive occupancy request. The first mediation date was printed on the second page. The shared home was named. The changed side gate code was named. Nolan's request was simple. During the separation period, no non-family third party would have access to the house. I signed for the packet and kept holding the pen after the clipboard was taken back. The thing is, the page looked too ordinary for something that could remove a person from her own hallway. I said Nolan was making Liam sound like a threat. The mediator said the issue was unauthorized access and disputed boundaries during separation. Neutral. Simple. Impossible to twist. Evelyn watched me with a tired face, not cruel and not kind. The proof did not arrive like a secret. It arrived like paperwork. The doorbell camera had Liam entering through the side gate after Nolan changed the old code. The group chat screenshot had my words about Nolan acting pathetic. Liam's message said he never agreed to be part of my marriage fight. Jessa's silence sat around the whole thing without needing a page. During the mediation break, Liam sent one message. He wrote that he never asked me to blow up my marriage over him. Then his profile picture disappeared from the chat. I moved into my mother's guest room, where the closet smelled like lavender sheets and old cardboard boxes. The joint account became two smaller accounts, and storage fees started taking money I used to spend without checking. Jessa stopped answering late-night calls, Priya unfollowed me, and Evelyn became Nolan's emergency contact. Liam kept working at the same bar but told mutual friends he was never serious about me. At school, I still taught students about boundaries while my own house key sat in an envelope at the mediator's desk. I believed Liam proved I was still free. I believed Nolan's boundary was the thing that would trap me. But the person I called freedom stepped away, the second consequence had a name, and the person I called boring became the only one clear enough to close the door. The blue enamel house key was returned across a mediation table without anyone touching hands. I said my childhood friend would never destroy my marriage, but I was the one who handed him the key.